I'm going to test my mic very briefly. Are you guys able to hear me? Hello, hello, hello. If anyone could. Okay, perfect. All right, I'm just going to wait another minute or so. We usually wait about 5 minutes for these things to start, just for some other folks who want to trickle in, and then we will get started. Thank you guys for joining us today. Let's see, another minute for some folks to come. Okay, 6:05. Well, this is Eastern Standard Time. This was set, I think, for 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 3 to 4. So the format for these, if you're joining us for the first time, is roughly about an hour. And the first half, 30 minutes or so, I go over some updates about Lofty, new features, any problems that the ecosystem has been seeing that have been resolved, or any updates there. And then the latter half is just sort of a Q&A. You can ask me any questions, and if I know the answer off the top of my head, I will be able to answer them here. If not, I'll let you know, and you can always email me privately, and I'm able to get you the answer at a later time. Ideally, you keep the questions to sort of generalized questions around the platform and specific events and issues versus a specific bug related to your account or something like that. For those ones, it's better to just directly email us and our support team, and we'll make sure to take care of it for you. Awesome. So, without any further ado, welcome to the January 2026 Lofty live stream. I'm happy to be here. We didn't do one for December, and nothing super specific. It was mainly just because figured, end of December, holidays, most people are at home with families. Probably not the best time to have a live stream. So it got bumped over, and we're continuing the trend here. And starting in January, we're going to be doing these roughly once a month. Yeah. So let's start off with some updates around the platform. I'll go through some of the property updates first, which I usually don't do, but there's been a lot going on with some of this stuff. So um, just starting off, a lot of you might have received a bunch of emails um, about properties being sold and redemptions and things like that. So over the last few months, I think we've had the largest uptick in properties being liquidated by their owners on the real estate market. So that's when someone, instead of trading the token prices amongst owners in the marketplace, any owner can come and propose a vote and say, hey, we're going to sell this property, list it on the traditional real estate market, and see if anyone wants to buy it there. Um, you know, our goal is obviously to make liquid trading on Lofty as great as it can be, as efficient as it can be. But until we get there, a lot of times the token prices that you see trading on Lofty is a mispricing of the underlying real estate. And so I think a lot of you can kind of see in the emails, it will show you the average trading price for the last few days, and then not last few days, maybe even last few months, and then it will show you what the price per token the property was actually sold on the market for. And some properties they're somewhere close, but generally you see a trend where the property is always sold at a higher price than the tokens being traded. So that tells you, at least right now, our market consistently underprices the real estate assets. There are some exceptions here and there, but usually those properties have like very serious underlying issues with the properties, foundation, something like that, the condition of the property. Any property that's kept in good condition by the property managers or their respective ownership base have always, pretty consistently outperformed the trading price. Um, you know, Off the top of my head, I think the largest mispricing would have been one of the more recent ones where I think the final price, redemption price, was $41 a token, and I think the trading price was something like $19 a token. So that just kind of gives you an idea of the dynamics there. And so I kind of go over this to explain to any existing users or new users who wasn't quite aware of how that works, and the fact that they could even propose to sell the underlying property. But if you want to liquidate a large position that you think the liquidity pools and market prices can absorb on our platform, it's always better to try to actually sell the underlying property. The other thing is relatively good news. I will wait, and maybe some of the updates have been sent out already for the respective property managers and DAO elected representatives, to give you guys updates directly. But from what I understand in here, there have been tentative agreements reached between Cal and Earl on behalf of various DAOs for the Florida properties. And it is also my understanding that the property manager has actually gained control over a variety of those properties that have been in dispute for these past few months. So hopefully that is a sign that we're at a resolution or getting very, very close to a resolution. So that's really great to see. And you may have also noticed some of the updates coming out, where we tell you these updates are directly coming from the property managers that you've elected through governance. You'll notice that we built in a new feature where they can help bypass Lofty completely. So there's a property management portal where if you are a property manager on Lofty managing any of these properties, you now have access to this portal, and you can directly update the financial data, the property description page, and there's a section where you can basically write out an update. And when you submit that update, it will automatically go on the property page, but it will also be emailed to all the existing owners of that property. So this is just continued work in progress on our end to sort of decentralize or remove ourselves at Lofty as an intermediary, so that you can directly manage and communicate with your elected representatives on how to deal with these properties and assets. So that's really exciting to see, and it seems to be working well. There was briefly a formatting period where the updates were formatted very oddly if you saw them in your email. That was a limitation in the third-party API access we had, but we've since figured out a workaround for that and released it. So now you should be seeing these updates come in a much better format, a lot more clean. Cool. So moving on to the next thing. You may have also seen how we do redemptions, and we've done some updates around that stuff. So now when a property is redeemed, you'll usually see a button where you can just claim the redemption, and it will automatically take the tokens out of your Lofty wallet, connect it to your account, and then send you the equivalent dollars back into your account. From there, you can send them anywhere, to Coinbase, to whatever exchange you want to use to offboard. You can reinvest it, reuse it. You can also continue to use our Rails and have funds sent to your bank account that way directly. Now, what we did change here was that when we wind down these redemptions, there's a couple of manual processes, and they're not immediate. So we run these automated scripts to kind of get them in certain states. But essentially, there's sequential things we have to do. And one of the issues we saw with users was that when you saw the button, it was the first step in this series of steps that we have to do. And sometimes that means the money isn't actually in the account yet. So when you click the buttons, it'll give you errors or it'll not work. And so one of the updates we made now is that the button will automatically go live only when there are actually funds deposited into these accounts. So you should not be encountering that error anymore. If moving forward, if you see any redemptions pop up in your account, knock on wood, it means you can pretty confidently claim and there shouldn't be any issues. So yeah, we made that update, I think, within the last week as well. Let's see. And then here are just a series of updates since the last live stream, which I believe was in November. And then obviously we didn't have one for December. So for those that are in the Discord and reading the updates, or reading the updates over email, this will be old news to you, but I think it's worth mentioning on the stream for those that didn't tune in since the last one. So, limit orders now, interact with market orders. So that's really exciting. Previously, they were completely separate systems within the platform. For market orders, you are a price taker, but the liquidity is instant. For limit orders, you need to have more patience, but you don't experience any slippage, but you need to wait for a counterparty. So we've now made the two orders operate with each other. So when you create limit orders now, if at any point in time the prices quoted by the market makers are within range of your limit order, the platform will automatically cancel your limit order and execute them as a market order on your behalf. And let's say you wanted to sell 10 tokens or 100 tokens, but there was only enough liquidity to absorb maybe 10 tokens at the price that you wanted. It will only execute for those 10 tokens, and your limit order will be recreated. But now, instead of 100 tokens, it will recreate a new order for 90 tokens that haven't been sold yet. So that is how this whole thing is intended to work. And there were some minor bugs here and there, during launch, but I think our team has patched the vast majority of them, and we're continuing to monitor for any new issues. So if you guys experience anything, please let our support team know so we can go in and patch this. And if you're curious about fees, this is inclusive of fees. So obviously fees on market orders are more expensive. So it's factoring those fees in, meaning that, at your specified price for the limit order, it will factor in the market order fees. So we'll only execute at or below your desired price. So yeah, that's limit and market orders. We're really happy to push that out finally. Another one relating to order architecture itself is unfunded limit orders. So this one went out fairly recently. So you will not need to fund the orders anymore. Meaning previously, if you created a limit order, let's say you want to buy something for $100, it would lock up the $100 from your account. So this way it guarantees that at the time of settlement, you have the funds to actually pay for it. So we've changed that architecture completely. Now you can basically create any amount of limit orders for the same properties at different price points for different properties, and it doesn't cost you any money at all. And what will happen instead is, if your order could be matched to someone else's order or to the market orders, it will try to charge you at the time of settlement. So if you have money in your Lofty wallet, or if you, let's say, have a credit card on file, then at the time of settlement matching, it will, it will basically, what's the right word for it? It will basically charge them like in real time, essentially, as settlement. And this again factors in fees and all of those things. So what this should do is allow for people who want to kind of, market make or passively set a lot of, floor prices for different properties that they like. They can just create a bunch of orders and not tie up any funds in the meantime. So we hope that's helpful for the folks that want to do that. And on a secondary sort of benefit, we hope that it also provides a bit more liquidity in the order book, because people will be able to see more intent for transaction, if you will. Cool. So the next one is the Oracle price adjustments and updates. So this ties into the undervalued and overvalued feature as well. So this one, you probably will see it. It's pretty prominent in the marketplace now. We are essentially quoting you or displaying you a price that, hopefully should be close to what a property's true value on the real estate market is. And we will also then calculate the current, available tokens and what they're being, traded at, and quote you the sort of available price that the property is trading at. And we just think this provides more mental context for people instead of forcing you to do manual calculations, which a lot of users are already doing anyway. The numbers sort of just display there for you. Um, and context wise, people don't know what $20 means or $30 a token means. Like, is that actually better than $50 a token? It would be if every property is listed at $50, which has been the case historically. But in the future, that might not be the case, right? So, really at the end of the day is how much is the actual house being traded at price wise? And do I think that is a good value or not? That's really the question that users care about. So we hope this surfaces it in a more obvious way for you. Now, in terms of how do we define undervalued and overvalued? Obviously there isn't a perfect formula, and this is going to change, and we're going to try to continuously improve on it over time as we have more data and more experience seeing how these third-party data tools, do in terms of accuracy. But obviously, this is not a number we're providing you. We're not at Lofty. We're not interested in doing that. We're not underwriting the properties and providing you that estimate. This is a third-party service. They're called Mainstay, and they used to be, I think, Opendoor invested money in them as well. But they are basically a third-party tool using an AVM system. So that means automated valuation, model. And so basically, think of it as like Zillow's estimate. They basically go in and will, without visiting the house, automatically, based on the data available, properties that have recently sold, size, square foot, number of bedrooms, bathroom, things like that, and some other data factors, and try to digitally price what the home is worth. So the pros and cons of this method is that, the pro, you get updates more frequently. We can ping their API, which we pay for, as frequently as we want. But the current schedule is set to be monthly, so once a month. Now, we can do it more frequently than that if that's actually useful for people, but we're starting out at monthly. The cons for that is, a lot of times these are not as accurate for, as a professional appraisal, who's going in and doing the work manually. And sometimes when it's wrong for certain properties, it can be very, very wrong. Like, it will think a $100,000 property is worth like $300,000. Like, it could be very extremely off. But in practice, we see that is actually a fairly rare occurrence, and that percentage wise across hundreds of properties, it'll maybe 5%, less than 5% will be wrong in that sense, right? So we're still trying to figure out a better way to deal with those anomalies. So you might still see some inconsistencies as we continue to refine this. But yeah, over time, we hope to move that to be more and more accurate so that people have, a really good idea of the value, whether it's undervalued or overvalued, right? So you don't overpay for things, and, hopefully that's a good thing for everyone. Let's see. And then this is the most recent fix. It should have just went out actually earlier today. It was brought to our attention by some users that if you had tried to subscribe to a price alert feed, so if you go to any property, there's a bell icon. If you click on that, you'll start getting emails whenever the price of that property changes by a specific percentage. And we've been told that when you get that email, you get multiple of them, consistently 2 emails instead of 1, which, I get is really annoying and spammy. So we just push out a fix for that. So hopefully now moving forward, when you get a price alert update, it's only going to be 1 email. So please monitor that and let us know if it's been fixed or has not been fixed successfully. So basically, like, as of now, or, by tomorrow, whatever time zone you're in, if you're still getting multiple emails for the same property price movements, then please let us know. Yeah, so that got pushed out just today as an update. So that's pretty much all the feature and property updates we have going on. So now, for the last few minutes before we go into Q&A, I am going to talk a little bit about upcoming features and things that we're trying to do and we're excited about. Um, so one thing that is coming up very, very soon, I think some of you will be pretty excited to hear this, is the referral program. So if you joined in the last year, you may have noticed that our referral program has not been uh, active in the sense. Like you could still refer people and it will get tracked by our database, but our platform wasn't actually paying out the rewards. And this was because towards the end of 2024, there was a sort of coordinated effort by people to essentially try to scam this reward system, where they were referring people, and these people would get the credits. They would go and use those credits to buy tokens in properties. They would then immediately sell those tokens, and they don't care how much money they sold them for because it's free money effectively. And then they would cash out and never use the product again. So obviously, that's not what the rewards are meant for. It's to actually reward people, who are sending more users to the platform, so our existing users, and also meant to reward the people that they're sending over to us who have intention of actually using the product. Um, so our team has been sort of rebuilding the whole architecture from the ground up, and here's how it's going to work moving forward. Um, you'll still get the referrals. All of that's the same thing. The UI will be exactly the same. The emails, all of that will be the same. Nothing's changing. What is changing is how you get the credit and what happens afterwards. So previously, we gave you the credit, and if you bought a token, you can do whatever you want with that token. That's now yours. Moving forward, you know, the referral credit, when you use it to purchase a property, is going to actually lock up the tokens you purchase in an escrow contract. And they won't be available to you to sell for a specific period in time. And right now, that period is set to 90 days, so roughly 3 months. But during this 3 months, you will be counted as an owner of the asset, meaning that you can vote on governance measures. And this would actually give you ownership and allow you to do that. You will actually receive the rental income during this entire 90 days. So the credit will go to your account. You can cash out. There's no locks in the cash flow earned by the credit, but you are not able to sell the property. When the lock ends automatically at the 90-day period, the token will be released and will come back to your account. So this sort of filters out, we think, all the short-term people that are trying to game the system. And if you're genuinely a user of the platform and you're intending to use the platform, 3 months hold for a real estate asset is really honestly nothing. So hopefully this will just eliminate all the problems. And over time we can sort of tweak what the lock is. We can update it, maybe make it 2 months, maybe it needs to be longer, whatever is the case. But that's effectively how the new rewards program is going to work. Um, and as a big thank you and celebration for this coming back live fairly soon, we're increasing the payout as well. So previously, I believe it was 50-50. So, you would, if you referred someone who, invested some amount of money, you'll get $50 as a payout. But the person you referred will also get $50 as a payout in the credit. Now we're going to raise it to $100 and $100. So now for every referral that's qualified, you as the person doing the referral will get $100 credit for that. And the person you referred will also get $100 credit for that. And again, that amount we can sort of adjust and change over time. But yeah, so effectively we've doubled the referral payout for our users. With the expectation you can't really take advantage of it this time. So we'll see how true that remains. But yeah, that's really exciting, and we're happy to roll that out soon. Another feature is automated restaking. So for liquidity pools, for those of you that have used it, when you earn rewards, it just sets like in an escrow account for you. If you don't withdraw it, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't earn additional yield. You're not really using it for anything. So moving forward, we're going to create this new feature where the rewards you get from staking is automatically restaked on the USDC side of the pool for you. and that will earn you additional rewards compounding. So before, all of your staking returns are not compounded over time. But now moving forward, if you have this feature on, it will be compounding. So that's really exciting. And we've run some early numbers with past pools that have spun down, and people have made money on those pools. We reran the rewards there with some assumptions of like if 100% of the rewards that were paid out were immediately restaked for compounding, what would the returns look like for people? And the results are pretty phenomenal, because compounding returns after a year or two, especially if the returns nominally are big, people are getting pretty large compounded returns. So that's really exciting. So we're going to roll that out fairly soon as well. And then the third one, it's not really a new feature, but if you're aware of the dates and the US tax system, you'll know tax season is upon us soon. So our team's running the new tax forms for you as we speak. So hopefully we can get those out for you fairly soon. The only adjustments we've made to calculation this year is previously it did not account for transaction fees. So that wasn't added into your cost basis. And we've gotten a lot of feedback around that. So now the change this year is that these cost bases will factor in trading fees and any other fees that were present. So, OR fees, basically like credit card fees, anything you paid, out of pocket as a cost will be added to your cost basis, will be factored in. So that hopefully should come out soon. It takes, because of how many users we have, it takes a little bit to run, but hopefully we can get this out for you fairly soon, within a week or two, ideally. So that is taxes. And then finally, for sort of longer term feature sets that we're currently working on and are pretty excited about, the first one is, we're going to try to release an API for you guys. For most of you, that's not going to mean anything, but essentially is a programming interface that allows you to execute trades in a programmatic way on the exchange. So for some of the users are more technical, they will be able to actually build trading bots that can act as additional market makers, or work on any strategy that they see fit directly on the platform. And yes, you kind of have to KYC because these API keys are tied to your account. If you want to sort of institutionalize this more, you can tie it to a business account, which we already support on Lofty, but you do have to KYC for these bots. And the goal here is to give the people that want to do this an ability to essentially, pursue specific trading strategies on Lofty in an algorithmic or automated way. And hopefully they derive a lot of alpha and profit from that. And the side effect for everyone else who, isn't technical to do this or doesn't have an interest to do this is that because of more trading from these bots, hopefully you will all have higher liquidity and deeper liquidity for your orders, right? Which on a net basis will be good for you as well. So that's why we're pretty excited about that feature rolling out too. And then finally, I don't think I talked about this one too much in the past, very briefly, but we're going to try to experiment with something, which is the ownership cap. Right now, to keep governance fair, you are, as an owner, like if you're buying these tokens, capped at 15% ownership. So once you hit that cap, our system will actually prevent you from buying and accumulating more tokens. Now, obviously, that is a little bit restrictive. We have reasons for why we want to do that to keep governance fair. So, one owner cannot dictate all the terms on behalf of other owners. But it also means that you're not able to, if you really, really love a property, you're really, really interested in it. For some people, they might even want to turn a house into their, primary residence one day. Whatever the rationale is, it's restrictive in that we don't allow you to accumulate more ownership in the property that you actually like. So the goal is we want to ideally remove that cap completely. And what that means is, in theory, if you want to, you can just on the open market keep buying tokens until you're the single owner and you own 100% of an asset. And then you can do whatever you want with it. right? But obviously it depends if people are willing to sell, if there's enough liquidity, what prices you're willing to accept, and all that. But we want you to at least have the ability to do that. But I think most of our users are going to use this just to add to properties that they think are good investments. Instead of owning 15%, they might own 20, 25%, maybe even 30, 40%. So we hope it can accommodate for that as well. Now, obviously, that raises some questions around, how is voting and ownership going to work? And we don't quite know exactly yet. Like, we know that there are some algorithms we can use for voting to keep it fair. Now which algorithm we use, that's sort of still a question. That's why we haven't released this yet. So here's our plan for how we're going to do this. Effectively, nothing is going to change for you guys, but when new votes come out, we're going to run it using the traditional method that we have today. And then, that's a vote that's going to be reported to you guys, because until something is officially changed, that sort of status quo still stands. But privately, we are going to be testing a lot of these algorithms for, if we run it this way, what does the result look like? Can the DAO even still reach a supermajority fairly easily, and things like that? So we're going to sort of do this and monitor this for, I don't know exactly how long, but quite a few votes. And if we find an algorithm that we're comfortable with that satisfies the requirements to keep voting fair, then we're going to do an official update and an announcement to tell you guys. And then hopefully when that happens, we'll remove the ownership cap, and you'll be able to build positions in, any property that you want to build positions in. So that hopefully is interesting and exciting for some of you as well. And then, and long term, I think the two other things that we're still working on, that I can't talk too much about, but just want you guys to know that we're still working on them. One is lending, and one is the for trading, which we call the universal liquidity pool. So right now, all the liquidity pools are separated. So for every property, you have a liquidity pool. The issue with that is, it sort of really restricts the amount of liquidity that's available to be used for that property. And so this wasn't really possible when we launched the feature at the end of 2023. So unfortunately, we had to launch it with this current architecture, but things have sort of changed over time. New algorithms have come up. We've been paying attention to what's new on the market. And there are now methods where, we don't know for certain yet, but we're pretty confident, like above 90%, that we can sort of re-architecture this now so that all the liquidity for, the dollar side is going to be in one pool. So if you add all that up, instead of $20,000 being available for a property, you might end up with $500,000 being available. So what that means is when you go to sell, you're going to see much better prices because you're not going to see slippage. And it will actually be practical for you to sell 10,000, 20,000, maybe even $100,000 worth of tokens in a single trade, right? And it will also make staking a lot easier for people. There will just be one giant pool that you can deposit dollar assets into, USDC specifically, and it will just quote you one yield. That is the average of all the pools. So you're going to see a lot less volatility. You're going to be able to see more consistent returns. And also, it should also prevent penalty fees as much, right? Because if there's a lot more, money in this pool, you trying to pull out, $50 or $100 is going to be a lot easier, and you're not going to be penalized as much. So that's a big architecture update. And then for lending, we're working on that as well. It's one of the reasons why, if you can tell from my background, I am currently in New York at a hotel, because I am working on getting us, traditional lenders, private credit folks to partner with us on this program. So part of this, for the first time, is not just a feature that we build. We have to do and, essentially fundraise on the side and sort of time it so that the funds are ready. and the feature is ready at the same time. But we're really excited about this because the money that is um, being discussed is very, very large amounts. So my hope is unlike the liquidity pools when we first launched, it's like, hey, here is $30,000 to bootstrap it. Um, my goal for this and what we're trying to achieve is that when lending goes live, you're going to have, um, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of credit and liquidity available for the future. So yeah, it's very ambitious, and that's why it's taking a lot longer than the usual rollouts. So yeah, so that's what at least for me, a huge amount of my time is focused on. So that's pretty much all the updates I have for you guys for the stream this time. This is probably a cumulative amount of updates over the last 2 months. And without further ado, for the rest of the time, I'm just going to go scroll down on the sidebar for all the comments and questions. And if I see a question that I have not addressed yet, that I know the answer to, I will give you guys the answer to now. So basically, the rest of the live stream is Q&A. So if you haven't asked your question yet, now is the best time. All right, let's go through it. So this is a good one, I think. So Katie asked me, how do you feel about the direction of how the PMs and representatives have performed in the wake of operations being turned over? So I am cautiously very optimistic. We have not had any issues or, to my knowledge, any sort of malicious acts from these property managers, or I don't even think PM is really an accurate way to describe them. A lot of them will do different things. A lot of them will team up. So you have multiple operators working on the properties for the owners now that do different things effectively. So I think I might actually just call these people representatives or DAO operators, whatever, DAO elected operators or representatives. And so far, like their performance has been really, really good. And I am not ashamed to say it. Like they have, in many cases, outperformed us in terms of how detail oriented they've been, how they've been able to solve problems and figure things out, how effective and quick they have been to communicate with owners and update them. Across a lot of these metrics, they have outperformed us. And, I'm really happy to see that because, if you've been around for a long time and you've kind of communicated with me privately, the goal of Lofty has always been to build a technology platform, but let other people handle the real estate operations. And when I say other people, not, third-party professional companies opened up, but more so the owners themselves, right? Because you have the most skin in the game, and we think that, if you actually put in the work, you'll deliver better results for yourself. And so this is sort of the stepping stone towards that. And we hope that decentralization also makes it so that you can focus more time. Like if you look at our team, we have 2 to 3 people that were handling hundreds of these properties. So obviously, sometimes things get missed, updates go out late, people forget things, they forget to update, one of X properties. But if you have 2 or 3 people and they're managing, maybe 3 properties collectively, they have a lot more time and focus on these 3 properties, and it's a lot less likely for them to make a mistake on that. So far, I'm very happy with the results. Max and I have just recently talked about it. I think in another month or so, hopefully not too much longer than that, we're going to start turning the next batch of properties and operating reserves and pretty much anything legacy that Lofty was handling over to these owners. These owners who usually are owners, but they're also elected representatives, right? And so this batch is going to be longer, or not longer, but bigger. So the first batch, I think we turned over operations, 3 properties per property manager or operators. And this one, I think we're going to double that. We're probably going to turn over 6 properties over to each of the managers. And then next round, we're going to double it again. And so over some period of time, you're going to have essentially everything transition over to these managers. Now, that's obvious to say. If things continue to work out well and people like this sort of new approach, if there's any issues, any malicious actions or things like that, then we obviously need to pause and reevaluate. But I'm really, really happy to say that's not been the case. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what I think about it. Um, has there been a change in customer support? There's been a noticeable decline in response time and activeness. Um, no, I think this is more just a situation with the AI tool that we've been using. Um, so in the past, if you reached out, your message would directly be sent to our support person, and they might not see it right away, but they're going through a list. They'll get back to you soon. Um, and response time was usually within a day pretty easily. But as we get more new users, and sometimes not even new users, like people just on the website, they haven't even made an account yet, they have questions. More and more people are reaching out over time to our support person, to the point where they get overwhelmed and they just cannot answer 10,000 questions a day, right? So we started this new AI feature that directly pulls from a knowledge base of you know different information, how Lofty works, how this process within Lofty works. And now if you ask that question, the AI can just directly answer you. So the idea is it gets better and better over time as we update this knowledge base with more information. You can just hopefully not talk to a person if you have a question. But a lot of times, if you have a very specific bug or question related to your account, this AI is not going to be able to help you, and you need to talk to a real person. The problem, though, is this is not automated. So if you send in a question, the AI will just answer it, and then if you just don't do anything or you keep talking to the AI, you're just sort of stuck in that loop. There's a very specific process and way where you have to request a manual person, and only then does your support ticket even get sent into a queue for a live person to review. So I think that's where the problem has been. At least we're gonna definitely keep looking into this to monitor things on our end, but a lot of our users just don't exit that queue with the AI. They keep just talking to the AI, and then or they see an AI response and they just think, oh, a person isn't here. I'll come back in 24 hours and then ask another question, and this time hopefully a person will be there. That's not going to break you out of the loop. You have to explicitly request a person. So I think that's what you're seeing, because we haven't actually made any changes to support beyond that. So hopefully now that you're able to reach a person in time. But if you continue to have issues, do let us know. We're always looking to improve this for you. If the AI is really not helpful at all for the vast majority of our users, we may just remove it, or have sort of a different setup where if you're logged into an account, you get to directly ask a person. But if you're someone just on the landing page asking random questions, that's going to send you to the AI. So time will tell a little bit, but that's how we think we can solve the problem if there are still issues. Um, Were there any email updates or communication in relation to Leclerc refunding schedule? I believe so. I'm not the one who usually sends these updates, but I think at least I've for sure seen Discord, and I've for sure seen property page update. So anyone who isn't on Discord can easily see on their property like what's going on with this one. So yeah, I believe so. Um, so someone's basically saying they had a issue with a credit card limit order. Um, has that problem been resolved for you? You said they charged your card 5 times and you didn't get tokens. Keep in mind, if there are any bugs like this, always reach out to us and we just refund you. So we make sure that you don't lose any money for this. We refund you, including the credit card fees, right? If you have actually been charged multiple times. But from feedback, I think It is working again, so you definitely shouldn't be encountering that issue anymore. If you want to give it another try, please go ahead and do so. But yeah, even if you run into issues that actually cost you money, just tell us explicitly what happened, and we always send you the funds back, so that you're not out of pocket on a mistake that we're making on the platform. Um, cool, cool, cool. Let's see. I think I addressed this one, but the restaking feature is basically LP fees going back into the pool. But it's opt-in only. If people don't want that, they can turn it off. But for the people that want to do it, that's going back directly in the pool. Um, what's our outlook on onboarding new properties? So that's a pretty good one. Yeah, if you've been paying attention, we haven't really done any new assets for quite a while. And the reason for that is because we wanted to pause and reevaluate, the onboarding process of what assets we select, how we work with sellers, how we vet them. Just because last summer, as you guys know, the issues with Cal and Austin and some other stuff, like it became evident that our existing sort of underwriting process and strategy isn't perfect, which, to be honest, it never will be. But we should always try to be as good as we can be. And the amount of sort of failures in filtering out bad actors made it very apparent that it's not like 1% of bad actors are getting through. It's more than that. So clearly something's broken, and we need to make fixes. Um, and obviously we have a pretty limited team, so while we're trying to deal with legal approaches, like how do we help our users make sure that you can't just scam people on Lofty and walk away scot-free, we're going to go after you for that. And also hopefully that disincentivizes any scammers from trying to enter the marketplace. That took up pretty much all of our time, so we just literally didn't have time, or we didn't think it was prudent as well. Like, actually, and we didn't think it was prudent to continue launching new properties. So now we're getting to the point, like I said in the beginning, close to resolution on a lot of things. Knock on wood. So hopefully they're good outcomes for the owners. And after that, we're going to start launching more properties again. We still have a large pipeline of people interested in launching assets. We just told them, like, look, we're not going to do it right now, temporarily, just because of things. A couple of things that we've already learned just from the experience. Now, if you want to sell your property, you're going to have to show us proof of recently paid utility bills. So if but these are the things that just wasn't part of the process before that we're adding in to make sure that, at least that exact scenario just can't happen again. We also used to let people, I believe, launch properties, 5% above the appraisal value. We're not going to let people do that anymore. So when you get an asset ready, you're going to get an appraisal, and you're going to pay for it as a seller, but we order it for you. And you're going to look at the appraised value, and that's the price at which your property can launch. If you're not happy with that, then you know you just, I guess, don't launch it. Another one is, a lot of properties used to be the seller pays the entire mortgage out of their own pocket. So this one was interesting. Like, the thought process was, it's still fair, and it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to do it that way. But if you're a seller and you really love your property, and it's only like a temporary, hey, I need a little bit of liquidity, for whatever reason, it kind of makes sense, because if you're the only one paying the mortgage, you get to unlock all the equity from that mortgage payment. So over time, you build up your equity, and that really catered to people that didn't actually want to sell their properties. They just wanted to. It's almost like a HELOC. They just wanted to get liquidity on their equity, for some arbitrary amount, and this was the easiest process for them to do that. Our thought process was that would sort of align, users with better sellers, people who, like, don't actually want to sell the property. Clearly, it's doing so well that they want to keep ideally 100% of it as possible. But obviously, over time, I think that was used incorrectly. And so I think for all the new listings, we're not going to allow that structure anymore. So basically, um, it's always going to be pro rata. If you sell 20% the Dow, like outstanding, you pay 80% of the mortgage and the Dow pays 20%. The other owners basically collectively pay 20%, just to keep things pro rata and fair. So those are some of the changes that we're going to do. But they're not just limited to those. There's other things we're tweaking in the process. So yeah, so once all that sort of disputes are settled with Kern, folks that we're in legal proceedings with, that the Dow owners are in legal proceedings with, and these things get overhauled, we're gonna launch new properties again. In the meantime, we're still gonna launch properties. They're just only gonna come from sort of trusted sellers that you guys know well. So that's why the count has been dropping a lot. Cool. Let's see other questions. The scroll bar is always so annoying. Let's see. Oh, that's a good one. We're definitely open to that. So obviously, when you sell equity, there's over time there's stuff that's locked up in escrow, if there are mortgages and things like that. Allowing other owners to sort of pay down the mortgage so that they can buy the equity at a fixed price. I think that's actually a really great sort of feature to add into the product as well. And everyone sort of benefits. As a seller, it's great. Someone else is paying off debt for you. Um, for all the other owners in the DAO, it's great because your leverage is decreasing in the sense that your liability is decreasing. So it's a safer investment for you to make. And then from the person buying, you don't deal with slippage because you buy at a fixed price and you can buy with size. So if you want to throw in a couple $100,000 fixed at some price per token and not deal with upward slippage of a market trade, you're able to do that. So yeah, that's definitely something we'll look into, and it shouldn't be too hard to implement as well. Earl's question is, can we get more transparency on ledger data for the ORs? We could, but at the same time, like part of this is we thought it was just kind of irrelevant because we're going to transition everything over to the PMs. So when we do that, you get the final ledger and then you get the money. And then moving forward, you can update and be, as transparent as you want for these properties. Honestly, like it's not that we don't want to do it, but it is just more work for us. And we're already like stretched very thin for everything we're kind of working on at the same time. So ideally, if we don't have to do it and this sort of just naturally is fixed by the transitions over time, we would obviously prefer to do that. For some of the properties that are taking longer to transition or maybe will be archived as the last batch, yeah, I'll talk with the team and see if we can do that better. And I suspect as more properties are transitioned over, it means our team is handling a smaller and smaller batch of properties. So hopefully at some point, I don't know what that exact number is going to be. Our efficiency is just going to go up a lot too, just because there's way less to manage, way less to keep track of. So I guess the answer is sort of yes and no. For the ones that we're going to transition in like a month, probably we'll just wait till transition. For the ones that's going to be archived for the last batch, yes, we could definitely do that better for you guys. Can new properties be launched in private or public capacity in pre-funding and post-funding stages? Sort of yes. We're testing this. We have been testing it over the last 2 years almost. There are some like DAOs that are actually, if you look at it, completely private. You guys don't even have access to them. And that's just mainly because there are people who have funds that are effectively securities because they're acting as a fund manager, but they don't like to deal with infrastructure on updating their investors, how to handle distributions. What if sometimes investors will do buybacks like, hey, I want to buy out of the fund, like, like I want to cash out my position, or I'm selling my position in the fund to another investor in the fund. So all of these are like compliant securities transactions, but you know, a lot of smaller fund managers don't have the right infrastructure to deal with this. So we have, at least one fund doing something like this. And so that's why it's private, because it's technically a security. So we don't want our existing users to trade that on the marketplace because, it's not really set up for securities trading. But the owners of this fund, the existing investors and the fund manager, they can all have this private market to themselves, and that is compliant. So that's already happening. So I think, if I understood the question correctly, is if you want to have a private market and make it more security like you're fundraising, it's sort of like a syndication. We can allow you to do that moving forward. Uh, it's not an official feature yet, but if you're interested, talk to us. We're sort of experimenting with that. And then eventually, if you want to convert from that private structure to a public one, we can allow you to do that as well, as long as you abide by governance. And now the manager has to be stripped of a lot of management rights, and new owners can vote and things like that. So we can definitely do something like that for you guys. If you have interest, or you have people who have interest, let us know. Um, cool. I think that's time. Um, there was another feature. Yeah, can we get balance statements on historical cash flow and distributions of properties? Um, there aren't statements for lofty distributions, meaning that everything is governed by the database. So, whatever is being sent into your wallet or your account, there are no like actual statements for that. We can generate them based on the data, but yeah, like there aren't like traditional statements in that sense. There should be statements, for like from the prior property managers though. So they keep like a ledger, and so you'll have balances and things like that. So those should already exist, if that's what you're talking about. And then if you're talking about the statements on the platform, we can just generate the numbers and add them into the property page for you. We can also generate more official looking statements for you if you like. Um, yeah, but that would just all be based on the database. Um, so yeah, I think that's it. Okay, I think that's it. Um, we are 1 minute over. I know I don't think I got to 100% of the questions. There may have been like one or two at the end that you guys are asking. But again, you can just, for those, ping me in Discord or email me, or save it for the next stream and ask them first. But yeah, I think that is all the time we have for today. Really appreciate everyone coming out and participating. I hope these are helpful. Over time, I hope this is going to be open up more to not just our existing users, but anyone who's sort of lofty curious. If they don't understand the platform, they want to learn how it works, and maybe chat with some existing owners in the chat, and ask some questions. This would be a great sort of avenue for that. Okay, so yeah, thank you guys so much for coming. Hopefully I've addressed most, if not all of your questions, but if not, you know how to reach me. Yeah, and that will be it for this month's stream. And probably at the end of February is when we're going to do the next one. Okay. Awesome, everyone. Great hanging out here with you again. Take care. And I am ending the stream now.